Welcome. In this video, you are going to learn about the introduction of the book Republic of Imagination written by Azar Nafisi. I have divided this class into three parts. In the first part, we will discuss about the author and we will discuss about her books. Then we will move on to the important points. There are 5 points she speaks about in this introduction. Then, in the third part of the class, we will expand those 5 points. Before that, I really want to thank you for being here with me, and I want to make a disclaimer because when I was preparing this for you, basically it is not prescribed in our university. I did it because I got a lot of requests from your university, so I thought as a challenge. It was really challenging to prepare this. Though reading was very easy part, but to condense what she was trying to say was really challenging. And if you don't know me, my name is Pradeep Hariharan. I'm an assistant professor of English, and I am on a mission to help thousands of graduates and postgraduates to score high marks in literature. So let's jump in and see what happens. So as I told you, this class is divided into 3. Don't worry about too many contents there. It's all the expansion of our 5 points. In the first part, we'll discuss about the author, then we'll important, and third is an expansion of points. So let's go to the author Azar Nafisi. What do we have to learn about her? As you know, Azar Nafisi is an Iranian American writer, and that is, she was born in Iran and she migrated to America. And she is in America since 1997, and she became a US citizen in 2008. So she's a diaspora writer. What is the feature of a diaspora writer? Diaspora writer, whether they are Indian, Iranian, regardless of any country, they are always thinking about their native land. We are also like that. Once we move out of our native land, we think back with a lot of nostalgia. So in this essay, she's doing the same thing. She's making a comparison between the reading culture of Iran and the reading culture of America, where she is living now. And she's known for her 4 books. Her first book, which was a revolution, reading Lolita in Tehran, a memoir in books published in 2003. So, you know, Lolita is a book which is with a lot of vulgar scenes and sexual content. So reading something that in a totalitarian country like Iran is quite challenging. So which you cannot do it. Those books are banned there. So she has to read it without any knowledge. And her second book, Things I Have Been Silent About, Memories of a Prodigal Daughter in 2008. And our book, The Republic of Imagination, American 3 books, which was published in 2014. We have to study the introduction part. That Other World, Nabokov, and Puzzle of Exile. So these are her 4 books, a very short introduction. Now we go on to the important points. As I told you, I could find out only 5 important points because I couldn't get, it's all my personal notes, okay. And in one point, we have 3 subtopics. So you have to understand that all these points can be converted into questions, okay. If they were asked you to ask you a paragraph question or an essay question, that will be changing the points into questions. So the first point she says in her Republic of Imagination is, imagination is more important than knowledge. We live in a society which gives a lot of importance to knowledge, and no importance is given to creativity and imagination. Even you know, when you started doing English as B and MA level, how many people made fun of you? English, what is the use? So here she says imagination is the most powerful thing. Even all the scientists, all the creative people, they had imagination. Second thing, how America is changing. As I told you, the second important point is the reading culture of America and the reading culture of Iran. She says that America has undergoing a huge change in the recent years when it comes to reading. And secondly, Americans are turning into a utilitarian system. Utilitarian means everything has got something productivity value. For example, when you are reading a book, a novel, people ask you, what is the purpose of reading a book? What do you get? You are lazy. That's the kind of feeling they say. Instead, if you are doing computer science or doing mathematics, science books, they may think that you're a genius. And the third thing she speaks about, how Americans have forgot about their great writers. As she says, American works are read more in totalitarian regimes where these books are banned. These people try to get it illegally and read. They take the risk of flogging, take a risk of police arresting them. But Americans, with all the freedom they have, they don't care about it. Now she speaks about the importance of liberal arts in education. As I told you, we live in a times where people don't give any importance to liberal arts, literature, humanities. She says, what is the importance of that? And the fourth thing is, what is the importance of reading fiction and why should we read fiction? And the last point, again, it's a continuation, the importance of reading books, which she says is to connect people. All our hearts beat together. It's the same beat it has got. So it is through literature, you know other culture. It is through literature, you appreciate other people and you bond them, and together we can form an ideal republic of imagination where people give more importance to imagination than knowledge. So these are the points which she has elaborated. Let's see one by one. Okay, let's go to the first point. I know this is going to be a lengthy video and sometimes you may get bored. So I want you to pick a paper and a pen and take down the notes and pause whenever it is required. Okay, because as I told you, this essay is easy to read but very difficult to condense. So the first point, she says, it's not a point, she says imagination is important than knowledge. She begins saying that she has, after publication of her first book, Reading Lolita in Tehran, she has been asked to come to many bookshops for book signings. So while she was doing a signing for these Americans, a person from Iran, his name is Ramin, she names him, he says, he told her, these people don't know about our culture. These people don't care about our culture. Then why are you doing this, signing your books? And he also says his experience in Iran when police arrested him for having some CDs, some music CDs which was banned there, and flogged him for no reason. And she says that she says that in Western literature, it is more consumed in Iran. It's more than in America. Okay. So then she says the importance of books. She says stories of collective wisdom stored in imagination by an age. So every age, they store their knowledge in their collective wisdom in their stories. You take, for example, any of our stories. This is my personal example. Our Mahabharata, our Panchandra stories, our Jataka tales, Vikram and Vetal, whatever you take, these were the collective wisdom of that age of the people whom they wanted to preserve for the next age. So they made them into beautiful stories and they collected them. Aesop fables, everything you take example, whatever be the stories, they are the experience of the people which they have the collective wisdom stored in the stories. So when you read, your imagination grows. You understand what happened to these people. So she says that imagination and ideas are not accessories. They are essential for the preservation of identities. How do we know what we are? It is through the stories. Why do we are proud of our Indian culture? It is because we had great stories which tells of our glorious past. So ironically, she says in societies where value of imagination is a threat, which is very bad for the citizens. Actually, certain societies, totalitarian governments like Iran and all, they don't allow people to read. What happens when you read? Your imagination grows. And she says, people thinking too much, totalitarian societies cannot afford. Okay, she says that totalitarian governments view imagination as liberal, as what you may call dangerous, because she says that what is the advantages of fiction? Fiction is an antidote to totalitarian government. Whenever you read a fiction, it is a story of a man who defies the rule, who is a person who uses his free will, his individual choice. So he is challenging the notions. So ultimately, when you are reading fiction, you are getting people, whether they are good or bad, they have taken their own path and they have fought against the system. And if we read like that, what happens? We will also do. So they were afraid. That is why in the book, she even criticizes Plato. Plato, we always idealize him. Plato said that we don't want poets in our republic. Why? Plato was afraid of people who are imaginative, who can emotionally change people. So she says, in literature, what we are doing, what we are learning is, when we learn, we improve our imagination, it changes us, to choose our personal choice of free will. And in a totalitarian government, they cannot allow it. So she says, preventing reading, preventing imagination is one of the greatest sins that a society can do. So, in a totalitarian government, everything is threatened. So, she says, this not an important point. She says, you inherit a nation through its fiction. Even before she came to America, she started learning she started reading The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. She read Nancy Drew, Gone with the Wind, Uncle Tom's Cabin, To Kill a Mockingbird. So when she was reading, she was what you may call inhabiting the land, even without being there. So that is the power of imagination. That is, even if you don't have it, that is, you cannot go to a place, it is through imagination we can reach various places. So knowledge is it's for memorization, but imagination is for life. In the second point, she says how America is undergoing a huge change. She says America's attitude to liberal art has changed. Actually, she says that libraries are disappearing, museums are disappearing, and what happens is that when imagination is lost, it separates the poor from rich. Actually, everyone has no one should deny of their power to opportunity to dream. So when you read books, you get the power to read. But America is changing fast. It's disappearing. And there are three changes happening in America. First thing, she says that there is a total rejection of their tradition. And there is what you may call, people are trying to innovate. They are going after the new things. They are forgetting the past. When you forget the past, what happens is that the great values of equality and equal wealth is tarnished. That is, rich people will be getting rich and rich, poor people will be becoming poor and poor, because they lose values. When you read, you get values. It is through imagination that we get values. So she says America is known as a country of what you may call vagrants, people who challenge. She speaks about Huckleberry Finn. She speaks about Whitman's, everything. America is a country of vagabonds, people who want to explore. But presently, America is totally changing into a kind of a utilitarian system with a total disregard for liberal arts. Actually, you cannot find what you may call well-read people, lover of classical music, and she says that even, I missed the point, this was the point I want to say. America has become a totally utilitarian system. People are losing empathy. Even she says American students are falling far behind in reading and math than European standard, and music teachers are fired, art classes are quipped, museums are closed. So ultimately, people are asked to, instead of reading poems and short stories, they are asked to remember train schedules and reports. So ultimately, their imagination is killed. And she says even American great scientists like Einstein, he was a great reader, he was a lover of classical music. She says that even a great innovator, he has to imagine first. It is through imagination that he reaches. But unfortunately, today there is a what you may call upper hand given to science, and liberal arts are tarnished. Even if you study in a college, it's my personal example, there is a hierarchy of subjects. Somebody is doing science, is treated as brilliant, while somebody is doing humanities, is treated as less intelligent. So there is a huge hierarchy. Doing commerce or doing physics or doing computer science is something with more intellect, and somebody doing English, history, philosophy as less intelligent or idiots. This is really bad, she says, because it affects our values, it affects our empathy, it makes us a kind of robots than human beings. And she then comes to the next point. What is the importance of liberal arts in education? She says that we live in a world where knowledge is not a luxury, it is essential. And there are two types of knowledge. One, you learn through imagination, our values, our honor, our system, code of honor, everything. The other thing is for practical things. Okay. So she says imaginative knowledge is not for pragmatic purpose. It is for us to live as human beings better. It is for us to make the world into a better place. For example, when you see a beggar, you give him money. It is not a knowledge you learn from the books. It is from the heart you are doing, because you feel sorry for that person and you want to help him with whatever way you can. And this imaginative knowledge is very essential, she says. It is indispensable for a democratic country, because in a democracy you want multiple kind of people with different opinions, and they must debate They must discuss. There must be room for talking. And how do you get it? It is through liberal arts, not through science. And what is the importance of fiction? She says, when you read a book, when you read a story, it is not mere flight of imagination. She says stories are a powerful tool of political control. And most stories link us to the past. So that is why when you see that there are a lot of mythological fictions coming up, it speaks about what kind of life we had. And imaginative knowledge is something that you discover tomorrow. For example, if you have read Panchatantra stories, that value you may imbibed with you, you may carry it till the end. For example, most of you do not tell lies. Why? We learned it as a young through stories when we were young. That telling lies is bad. We have learned stories of the fox, how the shepherd made fun of. There was an imaginary fox. So we learned values that once you start to lie, people will mistrust you. It is not learned from a science book. It is most of our values came through stories. So she says that fiction is a reflection of how we define ourselves as a nation. So it is through the fiction of a nation you can define its culture. That is super point, I think. That is why I'm proud of being an Indian. Because when you read our fiction, when you read our books, you can define what kind of a nation we had. So that is how you define America. And lastly but not least, she speaks about importance of reading books. She says that the importance of reading books is that it connects us. She says that literature is all about differences, different people, different cultures. So when we read great books, you know great culture. It helps us to improve our culture. It helps us to give an alternative view. So she says that the advantage of literature is that difference is celebrated in literature. And despite the differences, as I told you in the beginning, our heart beat together. So it is through literature we are able to see what is good, what is bad. So moreover, one function of art is to witness an historian of man's endurance, to provide conclusive evidence. By that she means literature gives us inner power. It gives us power to endure. It gives us power to stand, fight against injustice. It gives us our identity as a person, gives us our personality. So she says that the greatest thing you can do to a person is to give him not anything to read. So if you want to make anyone powerless, don't give him any books. So when the totalitarian governments prevent people from reading, prevent education, they are hurting their own nation in the long run. In the long run, democratic nations where people read, what happens? They will progress. So that is how she ends. So to summarize, we can see that she speaks about the importance of imagination. She speaks about importance of reading. She speaks about how Americans, with all their democracy and all, forgetting their own great writers, whereas people in Iran, they are struggling. They are reading illegally books and cultivating. So she asks Americans to think, to reflect, to introspect about themselves, and she is pointing at the other people, that is people like those who live in Iran and all, how we are struggling to gain knowledge in repressive government. When you have got all the opportunities, why are you not learning? So she speaks of an utopian dream. That is, she thinks of a world where people of all cultures, of all countries, live in a republic of imagination, where they respect each other, where we have more values, empathy, like that. So that is how she concludes that part. I don't know whether I have done justice to you. I did my best. If you could understand this, I will be grateful. If you really liked it, please give me a like, because I want to know, because I'm in YouTube for just active for 3 months. So thank you very much. I'll see you in another video. Until then, bye-bye.